Hi guys, welcome back. It's time now to tackle the search bar on the right hand side of our admin. Let's have a look at the PSD and see what we're aiming for. This is it. It looks pretty much the same as all the other controls we've added already to our admin bar. So let's add this to our markup so we can begin some styling shortly after. So this is our project. Here's our HTML, and after the last UL we're going to add another one to continue the trend of using unordered lists to group everything together. We're going to give this UL a class of search so that we can target it properly and have it floated to the right of our admin bar rather than the left along with everything else. And within our list item here, which will be the only list item, we'll add a form with just some arbitrary values just so that it validates for the time being. There we go. And there are just going to be two things within our form. The first being an input, which you would possibly have as a text, type of text, but we're actually going to give it a type of search in line with HTML5 markup. And we're also going to add some placeholder text, which is also an HTML5 attribute, and that's going to say search. That means that as default we're going to have the word search in our input there until we click on it or add some search criteria. And that's all we need for that, I think, for the time being. We could probably do with a name just to make it validate, and that's that. We're also going to have a button. That could also be an input of type submit, of course, and that's got the character L in it, which we'll style using our web symbols, and that will be a magnifying glass. Okay, so I'm just going to show you a couple of little bits of extra reading if you're interested. Firstly, you can go to w3.org and read up on the input type of search. That is a more semantic way of describing our input than type of text. It does present a couple of presentational problems which we're going to have to tackle with the CSS, but we'll approach that as and when. And then secondly, you might want to head over to dev.w3.org and have a little look at the placeholder attribute there as well. Technically, what we've done at the moment is broken this rule here and used our placeholder as an alternative to a label. It's the only text which describes what's going on with our search field. But for the time being, I'm not too fussed about that. We do have this magnifying glass to help describe things as well, and there are fallback options which you can always add at the end of the tutorial should you feel the need. So, having added our markup, I'm going to refresh our file, and you can see what the WebKit browser has done here with our search. A text input would look very different to that, but the placeholder is working, and here you can see the standard button styling with the character L on it there. So let's jump into our CSS, and we'll go all the way down to the bottom and start adding some styles for our search form. First thing we're going to want to do is target the UL itself and then have it positioned over to the right of our screen rather than on the left with everything else. Excuse me. That means we're going to have to alter the margins, 20 on the top and 20 on the right this time, and nothing on the bottom, and we'll add one to the left also to stop anything from hugging up against it. So we'll refresh the page, and instantly you can see that in terms of positioning at least, that's perfectly comfortable as it is. Now we need to concentrate on the input itself. So we're going to style this in a very similar way to our control button. So I'm just going to grab this and paste it in nice and quickly there. So you can see what I've done is added some padding left and right of the input. I've determined its height, which is 28 pixels. Of course, with this additional border top and bottom, that takes it up to the standard 30 pixels which we're using. It's got no border on the right, of course. You remember having done this earlier, because the button to the right of it's going to have a border. We don't want to duplicate that. It's got a standard width and a background color. It's floating left within the form, and it's got no margins, and that's the text color that we're going to be using. Lastly, we wanted to just have some border radius, which is going to give us that final help along. Now we want that on the top left, nothing on the top right, nothing on the bottom right, and on the bottom left we also want that. And then all I have to do is copy that a couple of times and add some browser prefixes. Of course, from the previous tutorial you remember you can use the prefixer.com to help you out with that. So we'll hit save and open up Chrome again, and you can see that that's looking absolutely nothing like it should be doing. So let's just see what I've done wrong here. Admin by URL.search input. Yes, of course, we're in Chrome. This is the issue I need to talk about. Sorry, forgot what I was doing there. Let's just open up this file in another browser. Let's have a look in Safari, for example. And you can see that this is being also a WebKit browser, has the same issue. Whereas if we open it up in Firefox, you can see that our styles have taken effect. Now WebKit plays a little bit difficult with the search input, which is why a lot of people opt still for the text input, but it is solvable. So I'm going to now refer you to a little post by Glyn Mooney, who lives in Wales, North Wales. He's put together a series of reset styles to perfectly remove all WebKit's curious search bar styling there. So we're going to take advantage of this, all these WebKit styles. Thank you, Glyn. And we're going to grab those and paste them into our styles before our input styling. There it all is. It just removes all these unusual decorative bits and bobs that WebKit have added to the search bar. So we'll once again reset our page, and you can see now it's playing ball perfectly. Okay, that's exactly what we were after. Okay, now we need to deal with this button, so we'll once again get rid of this here. Now we'll go down to the bottom of our styling, and we'll start to concentrate on our button. Oh, apologies, one more style I firstly needed to add in for our input was a focus color to brighten up the text. Once our search bar is actually clicked on, we've got this pale grey here, but if you click on it and type something, it's a little bit brighter. Okay. Okay, so where were we? The button, admin bar, UL with a class of search, and the button. Now first things first, we wanted to sort out the font family, so we'll add our font family web symbols regular. That should give us our nice icon. There it is, beautiful. Secondly, we need to start looking at the dimensions of this thing. We want to add some padding in a similar way to the anchors that we've already styled with our icons, so we'll give that a padding of 10 and a minimum width of 10 as well. So that will take it to a minimum of 30 pixels wide, which is nice and neat. We're going to give it a border of 1 pixel solid, which was this color, if you'll recall, in its default state. A background of a nice solid dark color there, and a color just to brighten up that button of this. Alright. Secondly, we need to float that left in order to have it hug up against our input, and we'll remove any margin associated with that. Okay, lastly, we want a similar border radius to this, although obviously the border radius is going to apply to the right hand edge rather than the left hand edge. So we'll just apply this as such, and that takes care of our rounded edges. Lastly, we needed a line height of 28 pixels. And that should be that. That should nicely take into account. Oh no, we need the height as well. We've got the line height for the text, and then we need the height for the actual button itself. So you'll see we've got a height of 28 with the border as well. That takes us up to 30 pixels, and the line height, which will nicely vertically center our icon. So we'll bring up Chrome again and reset it, and now even though the height is defined exactly as our height for our other buttons, you'll see there's a bit of a problem, and the reason for that being is that the box model for the button element is slightly different. It behaves differently because it doesn't add any border to the outside of its volume, it adds it to the inside. So this has a height of 28 and the border's been added within that, so it's still only 28 pixels high, whereas everything else with a height of 28 plus a border has been built up to 30 pixels. You can read more about this over on w3.org, and it will tell you a little bit about the box sizing property. We could now influence the box sizing property and change it from a border box, which it is now, to a content box, which would then alter the way that the border is added to its volume. It does have some problems on some browsers, and it can be a little irregular. So all we'll do is boost it by 2 pixels in height, and that will take that into account that way instead. So that's looking an awful lot better now. Last thing that remains to be done is to give our search button a hover state. So I'm just going to copy and paste this one to speed things along. Down at the bottom of our styles here, we have our button hover state, and we've changed the border color, we've changed the color, we've assigned a cursor pointer so that you know you're hovering over something and it does something. And here, of course, just like our other controls, we have the box shadow falling underneath it by 2 pixels. Bring back our browser, give it a refresh, and you can see that's behaving an awful lot more like a search bar should. Right, this is looking an awful lot better. We've come a long way. There are just a couple of things that remain to be done if we bring back our PSD. Those being the menu, which is quite an involved process, but that's not too much of a problem. And then we have these tooltips, which I have quite an interesting approach for, and we'll do that as a quick tip in a later tutorial, I think. So again, that's all for the time being. Time to go and grab yourself a cup of coffee, and I'll see you back here for the next video.